And speaking of journeys, we talked a little bit earlier about the history of Pad 39A, which we see over your shoulder there in the distance. How does space travel look different from the days when you were an astronaut compared to the last 10 years or so?
Kate, I think it's dramatically different. I mean, the techniques, the orbital mechanics, everything, all the laws and everything are the same. But it's the face of space flight today that is dramatically different. I'm so excited to be here this evening for this launch because having I was telling somebody earlier today, just the thought of having an all commercial crew, a crew of non-professional astronauts lift off from the same launch pad where Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin left before they stepped on the moon is just flabbergasting. It's sort of it's the complete cycle of a tale to get us from where it was nothing but government to where now we can actually have an all civilian, all commercial flight where NASA's really not involved at all, other than being the host here at the Kennedy Space Center.
And we're so thankful that you guys are able to host us. Now, if SpaceX were hosting you on today's mission, imagine if you were part of the Inspiration 4 crew, what 2 or 3 personal items would you want to take with you?
I love listening to each of the crew members talk about what they took, and on each of my flights, my very first flight, as a matter of fact, since I didn't know whether there would be any more, I took a ring that had belonged to my mother. I actually wore a pearl cross that she had worn since she was a child because it meant a lot to her. And I took very personal items also. If I were to go today, I now have a 12-week-old grandson, so I would have to take something that belongs to him, young Walker Elias, and I have 3. I'm blessed with 3 beautiful granddaughters. So my guess would be that at least 4 of those items would be from the 4 grandkids today.
You mentioned your grandkids. How do you imagine that the future of spaceflight might look whenever they are adults and possibly growing up to become astronauts themselves?
Oh, Kate, I am firmly convinced that by the time Walker, who's the baby now, the 12-week-old, by the time he gets ready to go to space, we're going to be talking about, going to the moon will be, routine is not a word I like to use, so let's not do that, but it will be a place where we go with some frequency, and we'll be venturing off to Mars also. So I think there's a very good chance that probably Walker and maybe my baby granddaughter Talia will have an opportunity to be among the first people to actually set foot on Mars. So I'm very hopeful that they will end up doing that. And if they decide that they don't want to go to space, they don't want to fly, we're big proponents of, Sian is actually really pushing the arts. I really agree with what she says. Arts and design are key aspects of what's required for us to even get people to space. And they are 2 areas that we should not overlook as we talk about STEM education. But the arts and design are what gives us as an example, the wonderful spacesuits that the crew is wearing today. Some designer actually sat down and thought about that. That's not aerodynamic. That's actually a little arts and design there. So I think the world is the oyster for my grandchildren, and I'm excited about it.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. You add the A into STEM and you get STEAM, right? Now, years ago at
exactly right.
Years ago at a joint SpaceX NASA launch, you gave observers some really great advice, and that was to put their phones down and watch the launch with their own eyes and just really enjoy the experience. Now, with our Inspiration 4 crew sitting in their seats, what advice would you give to those civilian astronauts as they are preparing to go to space for the first time?
Believe it or not, I sent Jared a text a few days ago, and then I had an opportunity to say hello to them before they walked out today. And my advice to them was relax, enjoy it, suck it up, really spend time in the window to look at the incredible beauty of our planet from a perspective that not very many humans will have had. We've flown 500 and some odd humans to space, but as you all keep pointing out, when I flew my Hubble Space Telescope mission, we were at 600 kilometers, and that was a view that only people who had gone to the moon had before, and we've not had any views like that since because we've just not gone that high. they are going to be in a unique position looking at this planet from almost 600 kilometers, and it's breathtakingly different from looking on board the International Space Station. That's awesome, but it's amazing how much just the additional 100 or so kilometers adds to your perspective. You don't see the whole planet, but they're going to see a lot more of it than people see from the International Space Station. And I just hope they'll take an opportunity to suck it up and enjoy it and visualize it, so they can tell stories about it to their children and grandchildren and to every kid they meet when they come back. Because that's actually the most important role for an astronaut, is to become storytellers and help people understand why it's important to take care of our planet and why we're running out of time, and we've got to be we've got to be better stewards of the planet. So I'm excited for them to have this opportunity.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. As the mission name indicates, one of the primary functions of this mission is to inspire others. So you hit the nail on the head there for sure.
Exactly.
Charlie Bolden, former NASA administrator and NASA astronaut, thank you so much for joining us today. Back over to Jesse as we continue to tick down to T0.
Thank you, Kate, and thank you, Charlie Bolden. That was an incredible interview, and great to hear from him, our partners at NASA. It's just so great. You know, teamwork really makes the dream work. So if you're just now joining us, you picked a great time, as we are approximately T-minus 56 minutes and counting until launch. Welcome to the coverage for the mission known as Inspiration 4, the first all-civilian mission to space. Liftoff time is still holding for 8:02 p.m. Eastern time, and we're tracking no issues with Falcon 9 or Dragon. The range is green, the weather is cooperating. Over the last 3 hours, Jared Isaacman, Dr. Sian Proctor, Haley Arceneaux, and Chris Sembrowski donned their SpaceX spacesuits in our brand new SpaceX suit-up room, and were then transported to the pad where our crew entered the SpaceX Dragon spacecraft, which you've been seeing live on your screen the past few hours.
Yeah, but before we go any further, we have to get reacquainted with our crew. Let's take a moment and learn a little bit more about Jared. He is a 38-year-old Inspiration 4 commander. He is the founder and chief executive officer of Shift 4 Payments, a father and husband, and has set multiple world records as a pilot. When he was younger, Jared flew in over 100 air shows and dedicated every performance flight to great causes, and today is no different. This mission is named Inspiration 4 in recognition of the 4-person crew's mission to inspire support for St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. Jared has donated $100 million himself and is hoping to raise another $100 million to support the nonprofit organization. This $200 million goal for St. Jude Children's Research Hospital would not be possible without Jared's dedication to a greater cause. Here's more about the New Jersey native and self-described aviation and aerospace fan.
I grew up in New Jersey, and when I was a kid, I wanted to grow up and be a doctor. My older brother's a doctor. I watched like the show ER as a kid, and I thought that's pretty cool. I think, you know, saving lives is a pretty important thing. But, you know, life took me in a different direction. My interest in like aviation and aerospace goes back like since I was a kid. I mean, you know, the first like computer I built, I was playing like Falcon 2.0, and then, you know, upgraded to play Falcon 3.0. I went to like Aviation Challenge, which is part of Space Camp as a kid. I was a, you know, observer of SpaceX from like, you know, the outside looking in like a lot of people. And then, you know, my opportunity to kind of see what the inside was like began in October of 2020 when the idea of Inspiration 4 started to come about. A big part of what we're trying to achieve with Inspiration 4 is to send, you know, an inspiring message really to the world about what is certainly possible up there in space, but also what we can accomplish here on Earth as well, which is why, you know, this massive fundraising effort for St. Jude Children's Research Hospital is such a big part of our mission. To me, having some balance where you're trying to tackle a problem of today so you can earn the right to keep making progress tomorrow is just a philosophy I've tried to live by for some time. The advice I would give my younger self, you can aim high, you can dream big, and even things that people would say is next to impossible, you can accomplish it. I totally believe like we all have, you know, that fundamental obligation to leave the world a better place than we found it. I'm Jared Isaacman, and I'm the commander of Inspiration 4.
For this first all-civilian mission to orbit, Jared wanted his crewmates to represent the best of humanity, pillars he's identified as leadership, hope, generosity, and prosperity. As commander of the mission, Jared holds the seat of leadership. For the seat of hope, Jared went to St. Jude and was introduced to Haley Arceneaux.
Haley is from Memphis, Tennessee, and serves as the medical officer of the Inspiration 4 mission, overseeing medical care and experiments. When she was 10, she was diagnosed with bone cancer. St. Jude Children's Research Hospital helps her with groundbreaking treatment, including chemotherapy and limb-sparing surgery that resulted in replacing her femur bone with a prosthetic. Now she is currently a physician's assistant at St. Jude Children's Research Hospital, the same place that saved her life so many years ago. At 29 years old, she represents a couple of firsts for this mission that's already the first civilian mission to go into space. Haley will be the youngest American to go into space and the first person to go into space with a prosthetic body part. Here's more on Haley, who occupies the seat of hope on the Inspiration 4 mission.
I'm so excited to be going to space, and I'm just a regular person. I am so lucky that I got a phone call asking if I wanted to go to space. I'm from Louisiana. I was a super active, super outgoing kid, involved in everything, and I actually had just gotten my black belt in Taekwondo a couple days before I was diagnosed with cancer. I definitely am excited to represent those that aren't physically perfect. I want to bring this experience back and share with everyone I encounter, and just what this represents for the new age in space travel and who can be an astronaut. I've thought a lot about launch day. I've even had some dreams about launch day, and I still don't know what will be going through my mind. I know I'm gonna be incredibly excited. And of course, I have the window seat. Looking out the window and seeing Earth from space is going to be so incredible. Can't even put into words. What I'm absolutely most excited about is we're gonna call the St. Jude patients from space. And I'll get to video call these kids that I've gotten to treat, and these kids going through cancer treatment and getting to show them what life after cancer can look like. It's been incredible for me to watch how much this mission has already touched the kids at St. Jude and how much hope it's given them. I love this one little girl I talked to recently. She said, I can't wait to be an astronaut. Like, there was no if in there. She just couldn't wait for it to happen. I think that's what hope is. I am Haley Arceneaux, Medical Officer of Inspiration 4.
As part of the effort to raise money for St. Jude, Jared decided to give away one seat to a person at random who donated to St. Jude's cause. That seat, the seat of generosity, went to Christopher Sembrowski. Christopher Sembrowski of Seattle, Washington is the mission specialist of today's flight, helping to manage payloads, science experiments, and communications to mission control. He is a 42-year-old mechanical and diagnostics lead at Lockheed Martin and a United States Air Force veteran. As an amateur astronomer, he grew up with a natural curiosity about outer space and even worked as a U.S. space camp counselor. He was awarded the seat of generosity after contributing to a special fundraising campaign for St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. Let's meet Chris, the Inspiration 4.
At 56.80, the propellant load go, no-go poll is now open.
Let's meet Chris, the Inspiration 4 mission specialist.
When I found out I was going to space, I was dumbfounded. I think I was just struck dumb for days. The seed was planted for me to fall in love with space when I was little and started launching little rockets in my front yard with my dad, the first of which is still probably stuck in a Florida pine tree somewhere. But when I first saw a space shuttle launch in person from the causeway, 6 to 8 miles away, you could still feel that rumble pounding through your chest. That kind of just shifted my foundation a little bit, and I knew from there on out I had to be somehow a part of space, whether it was helping support a mission or lobbying for folks to be able to go into space. That's where I wanted to be. Of course, I'm going to be looking down at my home in Western Washington. I'm also looking to see what I don't see, and that's going to be lines on a map, or those walls that seem to separate all of us ideologically or politically or even geographically or physically. Those don't exist when you get far enough out. And I'm really hoping to bring back that sense of what it means to only have that one small line that matters to all of us, and that's the atmosphere that keeps us separated from, you know, the vacuum of space. As we get to launch day, I am gonna have the biggest smile going ear to ear. Just, it's gonna be, yeah, I'm gonna be shaking with excitement. No fears or jitters at all about what's going to happen, but man, that's gonna be a heck of a show. I'm Chris Sembrowski, Mission Specialist of Inspiration 4.
Jared reserved the fourth seat for someone who exemplified the entrepreneurial spirit. This fourth seat, representing prosperity, was awarded to Dr. Sian Proctor. She is from Tempe, Arizona, and serves as the pilot for today's mission. She's 51 years old, is an entrepreneur, an educator, poet, artist, and active voice in the space exploration community. She's passionate about encouraging others to use their unique space to inspire those within their reach and beyond as part of her Space to Inspire motto. Dr. Sian was awarded the seat of prosperity after being selected as the top entrant of an independently judged online business competition conducted by the Shift4Shop e-commerce platform. Here's more about Dr. Proctor and her love of exploring planet Earth.
The day of launch, I'm going to be thinking about how my entire life has led up to this moment. I was born on the island of Guam, and the reason why I was born there is that my dad worked for the NASA tracking station. And so I feel like space has always been a part of me. When I got that call, that Zoom, and Jared was on there, and he said that, you know, they picked me for the prosperity seat, that I was going to go to space with him and be part of the Inspiration 4, it really was like getting the golden ticket for Willy Wonka. Everything in my life finally came into focus, and I realized that it was all about this moment in time. I won the prosperity seat for Inspiration 4, and I did that not as a geoscientist or an explorer or an analog astronaut, which are all on my resume. I actually won this as a poet and an artist. We are striving for that Star Trek generation, that idea of a just, equitable, diverse, and inclusive space, or a Jedi space. I'm gonna be the first Black female pilot of a spacecraft ever. And to me, that just blows me away. And I wanna encourage the next generation to dream that this is possible. And a Jedi space, that's what that's about. I'm Dr. Sian Proctor, and I'm the mission pilot for Inspiration 4.
Coming up on T-minus 45 minutes, we're waiting for the launch director to give instructions to the team.
Complete, and the team is ready for crew access arm, propellant load, and launch. For non-urgent no-go conditions, brief the CE or LD, and they'll approve aborting the countdown. For urgent issues affecting the safety of the operation, operators shall call hold, hold, hold on the countdown net. Launch control will abort the launch auto sequence immediately and proceed into the launch abort sequence. At T-minus 10 seconds, launch control will be hands-off and relying on automated abort criteria for the remainder of the count. Operators advise the launch director whether structural breakup or fire is imminent or occurring per Dragon manual escape flight rules. In the event of a fire alarm, key operators will remain at their post while the alarm is evaluated. In the event that personnel safety is threatened, evacuate to the south-facing emergency exit, which leads directly outside. Launch control, you may proceed with arming the crew arm for movement.
So you've heard the instructions and a great view from the camera on the fixed service structure looking down the crew arm. SpaceX team has been pulled. The 7 operators on Falcon 9 in firing room 4 at Kennedy Space Center have indicated they are go for propellant load of the Falcon 9 and launch. The crew is given a go. The Dragon team's given a go. We're moving into the next of the major steps, retracting the crew access arm. This will take a couple of minutes. We're going to follow that by arming the launch escape system, and then at T-minus 35 minutes, begin propellant load of the Falcon 9. And sharing in the background here at Hawthorne, Keep watching the arm moving away as we get deeper into the countdown. Weather continues to be good for Falcon 9 launch. Range is ready to support. All systems remain green and go. Arm continuing to move away. Once it's in position, we ought to hear the instructions to the crew to close and lock their visors, and then arm the escape system on the Dragon spacecraft.
The countdown clock is continuing to tick, and we are now at T-minus 42 minutes from launch. We're standing by the crew arm. The crew access arm has retracted, and that is one of the last major visual milestones that we'll see in preparation for liftoff, and it's slowly moving back here. Should conclude shortly. And shortly thereafter, once the crew arm has been retracted, we should hear the call out that the launch escape system is armed. And from there, we'll hear that Falcon 9 prop load has started.
We saw our Inspiration 4 crew members suit up about 3 hours ago in our brand new suit up room located in the Falcon support building.
Crew access arm retraction complete.
That is good news. The crew access arm has finished retracting away from the vehicle. So the team suited up at...
SpaceX, you are go for section 7 of 4.100. Close visors and arm the launch escape system.
In copy that, SpaceX, we're go for section 7 of 4.100. We're closing visors and arming LES.
Okay, the next major step, you see the view of the crew inside the Inspiration 4 capsule, closing their visors. Make sure they're locked and sealed. The next step will be arming the launch escape system. That's where the Super Draco thrusters are enabled. So if anything happens from here through the countdown or flight, Dragon has the ability to leave Falcon 9 and carry the crew into a safe recovery out in the ocean. We're waiting now for the call out. The launch escape system is armed.
Yeah, John, you mentioned the launch escape system, and
Launch escape system is verified armed.
And there's that call out. The launch.
Copy that, SpaceX, we're closing out 4.100.
Copy that, Dragon.
There's that call out. The launch escape system is now armed. And again, this is the first of its kind escape system to provide this escape capability all the way to orbit. You can hear the team here is getting really excited as we march towards T0.
So the launch escape system, let's talk a little bit more about that. It utilizes the Super Draco engines that are installed into the Dragon capsule. There are 8 of them. There are 8 Super Draco engines on the Dragon capsule, and they're aptly named Super Dracos. They differ from the regular Dracos just a little bit. The Draco engines that are on the Dragon that help in in-orbit maneuvers, those produce about 90 pounds of force in the vacuum space. A single Super Draco engine produces 15,000 pounds of force. And so altogether, it produced over 120,000 pounds of force, and that is what is needed in case of an emergency to accelerate the Dragon capsule and crew away from any type of emergency.
Exactly. And like you said, those Super Dracos are just super powered Draco engines. And the only time they are ever utilized is in that launch abort procedures, so we are not expecting to use them today, but we do take safety very seriously, and we take every measure possible to ensure that the crew has options and has an escape in the worst of scenarios. And like Jesse mentioned before, it's the first of its kind and provides an escape capability for the crew all the way to orbit.
Yes, so that launch escape system is currently armed. Once in orbit, we actually disarm that, and we'll be relying only on the Draco engines from there on out.
Yeah. Now, next up, we will be having prop load begin, and this is basically when when Falcon comes alive. We begin to load liquid oxygen and rocket-grade kerosene, also known as RP1, into both the first and second stages. Dragon is already fully loaded. The fuels for Dragon, the hypergulls, get fully loaded down the street from pad 39A a week or two in advance to launch. So it's already locked and loaded. Up next is the prop load for Falcon 9.
One thing while we've got a moment, we were talking about Super Dracos and contingency aborts. You will hear call-outs probably during the Ascent, Stage 1A, Stage 2A, Stage 1B.
Propellant tanks will be venting for propellant load.
That just means various points in time, if an escape was necessary, the Dragon flight computer is programmed to do different things. How long the engines will burn, how long it'll wait to coast to apogee, what it'll do to come back down when the parachutes are deployed. So when you hear those, it's usually the crew giving the call out and the ground echoing it. That just indicates we are moving farther and farther away from the launch pad. And so if a contingency arose, different sequences would be performed in the Dragon flight computer. Right now, we're just 90 seconds away from the start of propellant loading. We're at T-minus 36 minutes, 26 seconds. Everything continues to look good for Crew Dragon's 4th launch with people. Today, the first all-civil mission to low Earth orbit. Now we should hear a call out right at T-minus 35 minutes when propellant load begins. Propellant loading will start on the first stage with liquid oxygen and RP1 kerosene fuel. We'll also begin loading kerosene fuel on the second stage. And it'll take us a little bit deeper into the countdown before we put liquid oxygen onto the second stage. And everything wraps up inside the last 10 minutes with the very last propellant finishing up at just T-minus 2 minutes.
So there on your screen is the Falcon 9 rocket at pad 39A, and at the very top is the Crew Dragon capsule where the Inspiration 4 crew awaits liftoff in just about 35 minutes. Again, if you're just joining us, this is the first all-civilian mission to orbit, aka these are non-professional astronauts. They're people like you and me that are they're going to be going up to 575 kilometers, and they're going to be orbiting Earth there at that altitude for 3 whole days. So you can hear the voices in the background here that are getting a little louder. The excitement in the building here at SpaceX headquarters is certainly growing.
Propellant load has started.
Especially with that call right there.
We're inside T-minus 35 minutes. We are right on time. Propellant load start call out has begun. The fill and drain valves for the first and second stage fuel tanks and the first stage liquid oxygen tank now coming open. Ground system pumps beginning to push the propellant into the Falcon 9. As we said, that'll continue all the way down to T-minus 2 minutes. We'll hear call outs and bring status as we go through the countdown. But currently everything looking good at pad 39A for the launch of the Inspiration 4 crew in just over 34 minutes.
So our crews, like Kate mentioned, are at the top of the vehicle sitting inside of the Dragon capsule. Jared, Sian, Haley, and Chris have been training for this journey pretty much ever since the announcement that they've all been selected as crewmates for the Inspiration 4 mission in March. What's super cool is that they are going through the same exact Dragon training as our NASA astronauts. In order to get to visit low Earth orbit, our teams at SpaceX have spent hundreds of hours teaching the crew about orbital mechanics, how to live in space and microgravity, and even running simulations of what a full mission would look like while seated inside of Dragon.
Yeah, the Inspiration 4 crew has completed numerous simulations, including a 30-hour and 12-hour end-to-end simulation in our Dragon trainer. They trained not only at SpaceX, but they also did a few other trainings, centrifuge training. They flew some fighter jets together, did some aerobatics in these jets, some flips, and experienced some real G's before this mission today.
Yeah, they even got to pilot the jets themselves, which was super cool to see.
They also completed a zero-G flight, which you can see them there, almost like superheroes. They even climbed Mount Rainier in Washington, which looks like a very difficult hike.
Yes, I think during the docuseries, it was almost a whiteout condition, but they kept trekking along. It was almost 10 hours of hiking, 4,000 plus feet elevation, one of the serious hikes that you can do up in Washington.
Yeah, some great team building, and they even signed their Falcon 9 booster that is sitting on the pad, and that is them with their signatures on the vehicle that they will be lifting off in just over 30 minutes from now. This team has studied nearly 100 different training lessons covering all aspects of the mission. At the end of training each week, the crew recorded video diaries of their experiences. In their own words, here's the crew talking about their various training over the last 6 months.
Jared Isaacman here, Commander Inspiration 4, and we're like 4 months and a day away from our intended launch date.
This week was really intense because we had a lot of the systems. We got to go into the sim.
Going through some CRM training and looking at what the mission overview is going to look like.
Talked a lot about teamwork and the SpaceX culture.
Week 2 of training at SpaceX complete. This was a heavy week.
I just completed another week at SpaceX and it was intense.
A lot of good building blocks. So you start in the beginning of the week with smaller things like losing comms to, okay, some circumstances are not so good, and then some get really bad where you have to, plan an emergency deorbit, which we initiate ourselves in that.
But man, challenging. I didn't realize how much upper body strength I need, so I need to hit the gym the next couple of months and build up some more muscles.
Today was my favorite day of training because today was the medical training day.
Learn some more about some of the medical experiments we're going to be working with and helping to advance what we know about humans in spaceflight.
We've all contributed all sorts of fluids now to the greater scientific cause.
But the best part is we all got in our spacesuits together.
We got to wear spacesuits, strap into the simulator, and feel like we were actually going to space.
Hello again, Chris here, and it's August 2nd, 2021, 44 days from our launch here in September. Everything keeps going to plan, and it's been an incredible week last week, working with SpaceX teams down at Kennedy Space Center, and then back here in Hawthorne this week for some sims.
This spacesuit that I got fitted for about 7 months ago, I actually get to see and try on and do a bunch of maneuvers in to make sure that it's comfortable and then I can move. And I am just so excited for this because, I mean, this is the spacesuit I'm gonna wear leaving the planet.
I'm just so honored and thankful and grateful to be a part of this historic mission and a part of the SpaceX team.
Y'all are working so hard to get to Mars and beyond. We want to provide great data, and we're really excited to be part of this.
All right, well, thanks everybody for a fantastic time here in Hawthorne, and also down at Kennedy. We've been doing training down there as well, so really appreciate everything you guys been doing.
This is my final call here from SpaceX, so Rook signing off.
So incredible to get an inside look to their training. Only 553 humans have been to orbit, and most of those traveled as part of government or country-specific missions. As a result, the research conducted on those missions, particularly as it relates to humans in space, is often only accessible by the country or government that conducted the research. Think about the possibilities if the data from all those missions could be made available to the broader science community for research. Inspiration 4 is a step in that direction.
the crew of Inspiration 4 will conduct research in orbit that has the potential to improve human health here on Earth and for future space explorers. One of the cool things about this mission is that all biomedical data collected during the mission, things like heart rhythm and rate, blood oxygen saturation, among other things, will be accessible for research.
And to that end, SpaceX and the Inspiration 4 crew are partnering with TRISH, the Translational Research Institute for Space Health, to collect data and biological samples from the crew before, during, and after this historic spaceflight. Part of NASA's Human Research Program, TRISH is a virtual institute that finds and funds disruptive science and medical technology in order to reduce health and performance risks in space explorers.
Yeah, we saw Kate with Diana earlier putting on some really colorful sunglasses. They're not really sunglasses, but it was an experiment about how do we understand motion sickness and sort of the ups and downs in space. That is something I'm super excited about because I get a lot of motion sickness here, and so I'm hoping that it helps a lot of people.
Yeah, it was really cool to see firsthand some of the equipment that the crew has in their cargo hold. Like we've said before, this is a science mission in addition to it's a 3-day science mission basically. And one of the other things that Diana showed us was the ultrasound reader and how the intracranial fluid changes while you're in space. So lack of gravity essentially means that instead of the fluids in your body being concentrated towards your feet, they kind of they equalize towards your head, which can affect vision. And they are planning to use that ultrasound reader, which they just plug right into an iPad to do readings live inside Crew Dragon of their eyeballs while they're in space for 3 days.
That was so cool to see.
Yeah.
In addition to all the awesome science going up on today's mission, the Inspiration 4 team is also using this mission to bring awareness and help fundraise for St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. The Children's Research Hospital opened in Memphis, Tennessee in 1962, and ever since has been committed to finding cures for kids with cancer and other life-threatening diseases, regardless of their socioeconomic status, race, belief, or ethnicity. St. Jude has invented treatments that help to push the overall childhood cancer survival rate from 20% to more than 80% in the United States. In developing countries, that number is unfortunately not that high, with fewer than 1 in 5 children with cancer surviving. St. Jude has a bold mission to change that.
The Inspiration 4 mission is part of an ambitious fundraising goal to give hope to all kids with cancer and other life-threatening diseases. The goal is to raise $200 million for St. Jude. Jared already committed $100 million. Jared already committed $100 million of his own money, and the team has raised about $30 million so far, but we still have a ways to go. If you're watching on YouTube, you'll notice that there's a donation button where you can make your own contribution. Any amount, big or small, makes a big difference, and it's super easy to do. So go ahead and click the donate button and give what you can to help save a child's life.
Beyond the good this mission will do for science and childhood cancer, this mission is also exciting because it's the debut of the new Dragon Cupola. I think we have some footages here of the cupola. It is going to be the largest continuous window in space ever by a factor of 2 and has over 2,000 square inches of viewing area.
And there's a lot that went into the design for this. This is going to outer space, so it needs to be designed and tested for, all the loads that it will see while it's out in space. It's a great view to look out of, but it also needs to act as a fully functioning portion of the spacecraft.
Yeah, we were talking about reusability earlier, and this capsule is being used for the second time on this mission. It previously supported the Crew 1 mission in November of last year, but this cupola is brand new to this capsule, brand new to SpaceX. We're debuting it on this mission, and it is there's a view of it there in an anechoic chamber, and it's just incredible that we're basically going to have 360 views of space from the forward hatch there. of the Crew Dragon capsule. And this is an animation showing how its position in Crew Dragon is a little different. So Crew Dragon used to dock autonomously, or does dock autonomously to the International Space Station, that port there being underneath the nose cone, and that was removed, and for this mission is now replaced by the cupola, as we just saw. So super cool new piece of hardware that I'm so stoked to see launch here.
As we await T0 in about 23 minutes, the ground operations teams are doing a series of system checks to make sure both Dragon and Falcon 9 are ready for launch. Let's take a look at what the Ascent portion of the mission will look like.
Once we hit T0, we will watch Falcon 9 and Dragon lift off from historic launch pad 39A and make their ascent. At about 50 seconds into flight, Falcon 9's engines will throttle down to help pass through the period of maximum dynamic pressure on the rocket, or what we typically refer to as max Q. And it's worth noting that once we hit max Q, the vehicle will be going supersonic.
Once we are through the period of maximum dynamic pressure, we can throttle up our Merlin engines again. From here, we are about 2.5 minutes into flight, and we have a series of 3 events that happen in rapid succession. First is MECO, or main engine cutoff. This is where all 9 Merlin engines shut off in preparation for stage separation. Stage separation is where the first stage detaches from the second stage, with the first stage making its way back to Earth for landing, as the second stage continues on its journey with the third event,
which is SCS-1, or Second Engine Start 1, and that is where the Merlin vacuum engine on the second stage lights up and propels the second stage along with our Inspiration 4 crew to orbit. As Stage 2 heads towards its targeted drop-off orbit, Stage 1 will execute 2 burns in order to make its way back to Earth. The first is the entry burn, which is where 3 of those 9 Merlin 1D engines will reignite and then shut down, and that'll help slow the stage down in preparation for entry back into the Earth's atmosphere.
While the first stage is heading back to Earth, the second stage will cut off its 1 Merlin engine that was ignited right after stage separation. Once this happens, we will wait for confirmation of a good orbital insertion. About 90 seconds after Dragon gets into orbit, Falcon 9 will land back on Earth. The landing burn, a single engine burn, will bring the vehicle speed down rapidly in order to land on the drone ship about 9.5 minutes into the mission.
While Falcon 9 first stage is landing, Dragon is preparing to separate from the second stage. At about 3 minutes after the second stage gets into orbit, we should have a great view of Dragon with its 4-person crew drifting away from the second stage. Once Dragon is a short distance away, it will begin checking out its Draco maneuvering thrusters to make sure Dragon continues to increase separation distance from the second stage.
It's getting very exciting here in Hawthorne. The nose cone deploy sequence will initiate just before T+12 minutes and end around the T+15 minute mark. We do expect to see our first glimpse of the Dragon cupola in outer space at this time.
We've just heard it. T-minus 20 minutes, 5 seconds counting. Stage 2 fuel load is complete. Now we're under 20 minutes to liftoff. Been a wonderful day for today's Inspiration 4 mission, the first all-civilian mission to space. And if you joined us earlier in the broadcast, we had a pretty important question for the Inspiration 4 crew that remains unresolved. For those of you who missed that, here's your chance to weigh in.
If I had to choose between Star Wars, Star Trek, and then one of my other favorites is Stargate, SG-1, I would rather trek across the universe than fight my way.
I've heard, are you a Star Wars guy? Are you a Star Trek guy? Those used to be true. I really think I'm a Battlestar Galactica guy, to be honest.
There's no question it's Star Wars. I'm a Star Wars fan, for sure. I would say that if I had to guess, it's a split crew between Star Wars and Star Trek. I don't know if anyone else would have dropped Battlestar Galactica. I don't know on that one.
Can't beat Captain Adama.
I think Jared is Star Wars. Sian is Star Wars. Chris is the wild card, but I think he's Star Wars.
Oh, Jared is definitely Star Wars. I think Chris is probably Star Trek, but I'm not 100% sure. And I would think that Haley, she's the youngest, so I think maybe Star Wars. I think Star Trek is too old for her.
Oh, I'm Star Trek all the way. I wanted to be Bones. I kind of am. I'm a medical officer, so.
I don't know if we're like completely unified around that. I mean, there is other, you know, sci-fi, you know, spacey stuff that that comes before Star Trek.
Okay.
They don't know they're wrong. Like that just they'll learn that over time. Like.
I like Jared's last little comment there. They don't know they're wrong. When you're the commander of the mission, I wonder what your vote counts. Just under T-minus 18 minutes, everything continues to go well. We're getting ready to start LOX loading on the second stage. That'll bring us another step closer to launch at 8:02:56 p.m. Eastern Daylight Saving Time. Falcon 9 is going to take Dragon into its orbit of about 190 by 575 kilometers. Shortly after that, we will raise Dragon's orbit to 575 kilometers in a circular orbit, higher than the space station, higher than the space telescope. For 3 days, a series of amazing views that Jared and the team should have looking through the windows and the cupola up there on the Inspiration 4 Dragon.
This crew will see about 15 orbits a day at this altitude. They'll get to experience 15 sunrises and 15 sunsets, which should be pretty incredible. And just as a comparison, John mentioned the International Space Station is going to be a little bit lower than where this crew is going to. Because the International Space Station is closer, it takes a little less time to orbit the Earth, so they see 16 orbits a day, relative to what this Inspiration 4 crew will see will be 15 orbits a day.
I do want to comment on what we're seeing on screen. This is the Falcon 9 rocket.
Stage 2 LOX load has started.
That was called for stage 2 liquid oxygen loading. You can start to see some white clouds around Falcon 9. That is normal and expected for us at this stage in the countdown. We are topping off that super chilled liquid oxygen, and when it reaches the warmer ambient air temperatures of Florida, it starts to condense and form those clouds that you see.
Now, if you notice that the second stage there is a slightly whiter shade than the first stage, that's because the first stage has been reused twice before. It previously supported the GPS 3.4 and GPS 3.5 missions back in 2020 and 2021 of this year. So that booster is making its third flight today. The Dragon capsule is making its second flight. It previously flew on the NASA Crew 1 mission to the International Space Station. So that's why the second stage looks a little different than the first stage there, just underneath it.
And if you're just now joining us, you are tuned in to the first all-civilian mission to orbit, known as Inspiration 4. It's getting very exciting here. We're just a little over T-minus 15 minutes from T0.
And we started covering the action at T-minus 4 hours with the crew walking out of Hangar X. They made their way over to the Falcon support building where they got suited up. And then we saw them hop in the Teslas, ride up to the pad, go up the fixed service structure and walk down that lit crew access arm that we see there connecting Falcon 9 to the tower. And it's hard to believe that we're now under 15 minutes before launching the first all-civilian mission to orbit. Again, these are 4 non-professional astronauts. They're people just like us, and they're going to be going to space for 3 days. They're going to be orbiting Earth at 17,500 miles per hour. So they're basically going so fast that they won't fall back to Earth until we tell Dragon to do so. And they're going to be going up to a height of 575 kilometers.
Yep, and at those speeds and at those altitudes, they're going to be doing tons of science, which is super cool. And all of that data is going to be available for folks to continue to push the boundaries of what human space exploration will be in their near future.
So that's a live view of Falcon 9 with Crew Dragon for the Inspiration 4 mission sitting on top. There we can see our 4 soon-to-be astronauts there, comfortable in their seats. Throughout the day, we have seen a lot of camaraderie, a lot of joking, and I imagine that things are starting to get a little more serious. They're really focusing in on the task at hand, which is going to space in just a little over 13 minutes.
Yeah, this is very exciting. If you've been following along, they do have a Netflix documentary following their journey all the way up until this point. And the crew has just been so incredible. It's been so amazing to watch them throughout this whole process, and very excited to see them strapped in their seats, ready to go.
We're just inside T-minus 13 minutes, counting down. Everything is still looking good for launch of Falcon 9 and Dragon at 8 hours, 2 minutes, 56 seconds Eastern Daylight Saving Time, coming up very shortly. Falcon 9 did begin propellant loading on time at T-minus 35 minutes. Loading of the RP-1 kerosene fuel onto the second stage is complete. That closed out right on time. Fuel loading is continuing on the larger first stage tank. It's about half full right now. That'll finish at T-minus 6 minutes. We ought to hear that call out on the webcast. We're continuing to load densified liquid oxygen onto the first stage and into the second stage tanks. Now, the liquid oxygen load will wrap up at about T-minus 3 minutes on first stage, T-minus 2 minutes on the second stage. Now, a reminder, now that we are into propellant loading, we cannot stop the countdown and try to launch later in the window. So if a problem arises that requires holding the countdown clock, those dreaded words, hold, 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 we don't want to hear, we would have to scrub for the night and try again. We have a launch opportunity tomorrow just a little bit later if conditions allow. Condition of the Falcon 9 being go, the range is go. Weather, we've had great cooperation out of the Florida weather, both ground level, upper altitude, and around the world at the contingency landing sites. On the Dragon spacecraft, Dragon mission director and that team has reported no issues. They've done their communications checkouts. The crew access arm that you can see is retracted away from the Dragon spacecraft. We armed the launch escape system on time. And on the right-hand side of the monitor, you can see the 4-person crew strapped in, and they are ready to go. Coming up in about a minute, we're going to get final instructions to the crew at T-minus 10 minutes. They're going to configure their crew displays for launch, and that's a setup that'll give the crew insight into how the launch is proceeding, and it'll provide updates on vehicle health. Then we'll get a little closer at T-minus 5 minutes. We'll be into terminal count for the Dragon spacecraft. Dragon will go to internal power. We'll hear continued call-outs on the countdown net as we get close to 0 and a liftoff. Now, next major event coming up right now, T-minus 10 minutes, as I said. Dragon will get its final instructions. We will also do a final series of checks of Falcon 9 telemetry against a preset limits. Make sure that all systems are go, and then we'll be moving from there into the closeouts on propellant, chilling into the engines to get ready for engine ignition down at about T-minus 2 seconds. Let's listen in on the countdown net for a minute.
Dragon SpaceX, confirmed crew displays are configured for launch.
SpaceX Dragon, our displays are configured for launch.
Copy that, Dragon. And it has been an absolute honor to prepare you for this historic flight. Today, you are truly inspiring the world. We wish you a great mission, good luck, Godspeed, and enjoy the ride.
So, Kate, it looks like we passed through another event, the T-minus 10-minute call up to the crew to reconfigure. That final message from the ground team as they get ready to have Inspiration 4 team inspire the world. On the Falcon 9 side, we're doing the last T-minus 10-minute checks. And the next major event coming up, I think you've got that event.
Yeah, that was, I just want to note, that was SpaceX Core, which stands for the Crew Operations and Resource Engineer. That was the voice of Sarah Gillis. and she is basically the primary resource to the crew. We can see some excitement there on the right-hand side of your screen as the crew, I think they're really starting to realize that they're going to space in under 10 minutes. Now, the next major event that we have coming up will occur at T-7 minutes. You'll hear the call out for engine chill. Engine chill is simply, as the name says, we chill down some of the hardware in the engine. We're actually going to flow a little bit of the super chilled, densified liquid oxygen through the turbo pumps and allow that hardware to basically come down, the temperature come down. This allows us to avoid any thermal shock to the hardware when the full flow of super chilled liquid oxygen occurs at startup. So there on your screen, Dragon Resilience with the Inspiration 4 crew strapped in their seats there at the top of the rocket. Once again, if you're just joining us, this is the first all-civilian mission to orbit, and they are going to space in 7.5 minutes. They will be ascending to an altitude of 575 kilometers above Earth and orbiting Earth at that altitude for 3 days. There's that crew there on your screen. On the far left seat is Chris Sembrowski. Next to him, Dr. Sian Proctor, the pilot. Next to her to the right, Commander Jared Isaacman. And to the right of Jared, Haley Arceneaux, the medical officer.
Stage 1 engine chill has started.
All right, there's that call that Stage 1 engine chill has started.
We don't really have a good view, but right now at the base of the Falcon 9, the 9 Merlin engines are beginning to vent a little bit of liquid oxygen overboard down into that flame bucket. As Kate says, that's chilling in the turbo pumps in preparation for going to high-speed flow at T-2 seconds. Nice view on top of the fixed service structure looking down at Dragon. The transport erector, or strongback, is currently still clamped onto the second stage right next to the vehicle. We'll see that retract starting about 4.5 minutes before launch when the arms open up, and then the strongback will recline away a couple of degrees. What we're getting ready for
RP1 load complete
right now is that call out. We're right on time. The fuel load, the RP1 kerosene, refined petroleum 1, rocket propellant 1 grade, is loaded onto the first stage. So that leaves us with just liquid oxygen loading continuing on both first and second stage. And you can see that moist Florida air slowly breezing by the 2 chilled down liquid oxygen tanks. And you can see the mist coming off as the moisture, the humidity in the air condenses and gives you those clouds.
Yeah, that super chilled liquid oxygen coming into contact with the ambient Florida air. So creates these puffs of white clouds. As John said, completely normal. In fact, we will be seeing more of those once LOX load completes and those lines are closed off to the vehicle. Coming up in just about 10 seconds, we should be hearing the call that Dragon has been transitioned to its terminal count configuration.
Dragon has transitioned to configure for terminal count.
Falcon 9 tanks are pressurizing for strongback retract.
Everything continuing to go on schedule. We're beginning to pressurize the tanks. That'll help stiffen the second stage up as the 2 hydraulic clamp arms will open up coming up here very shortly.
Strongback is lowering.
As you can see on the timeline there, at the bottom of your screen, the strongback retraction is the next major event. In fact, the last physical event or modification to the pad prior to liftoff. Falcon 9 is nearly fully loaded with almost 1 million pounds of liquid kerosene and liquid oxygen. That liquid oxygen is what we see venting there, those white clouds. All right, there on your screen, you can see that the strong back is beginning to retract.
And Kate, that strong back will move back just a couple of degrees you see here. Then at T0, when the Falcon 9 sends the liftoff command to the ground to release it, hydraulics will bring that strong back the rest of the way to about a 45-degree position at liftoff.
Stage 1 LOX load complete.
We've got the call out right on time. First stage liquid oxygen loading is complete, shutting down the ground pumps. We're down to just loading second stage liquid oxygen.
And now, under 3 minutes until the launch of Inspiration 4.
Dragon has transitioned to terminal count and is on internal power.
All right, there's that call out that Dragon is now running on its own power. It is no longer connected to the power systems of Pad 39A. As you just heard, the crowd is super excited here at SpaceX headquarters in Hawthorne, California, as we are now under 2.5 minutes until the launch of the Inspiration 4 crew. That crew there can be seen on the right-hand side of your screen, buckled in and ready to go.
Stage 2 LOX load complete.
And there's the call that Stage 2 LOX load is
Dragon
complete.
is an auto idle.
Falcon is now fully loaded with all of its propellants.
Closeout will begin shortly. Expect loud venting.
Announcement to let the crew know that as we vent off various lines on the launch pad, we'll hear some loud noises. Let the crew know that's planned. We're also right now draining the liquid oxygen out of the transporter erector, draining the lines, getting ready for launch. Waiting for the startup call at T-minus 1 minute.
FPS is on. Second round of startup.
Dragon is in countdown.
You can hear the cheers. We're inside 1 minute.
Go for launch.
Inspiration 4 is go for launch. Punch it, SpaceX.
Commander calling down.
30 seconds.
Punch it, SpaceX.
T-minus 15 seconds. 10, 9,
4. Copy, 1 Alpha.
Vehicle's pitching downrange.
Stage 1 propulsion is nominal.
T plus 30 seconds. Callouts indicate nominal. Historic mission flying the Inspiration 4 crew on board Dragon and Falcon 9. Great deal of the crew in the capsule. We're into the throttle down, into the throttle bucket.
Stage 1 throttle down.
Throttling down in preparation for the period of maximum dynamic pressure. And then into flight.
9 is supersonic.
Stage 1 throttle up.
We're through the period of maximum dynamic pressure.
Copy,
We're
1
throttled
Bravo.
back up, and 1 Bravo, the call out from space. That's one of the abort sequences. That is a nominal call. Everything continues to be good. Looks like a smooth ride for the crew. Okay, we heard the call out. MVAC-D is chilling. We're beginning to get the turbo pump ready on the second stage engine for ignition. We're passing through 3 G's acceleration. Everything continues to look nominal. Merlin engines are throttling down for G limiting. 4 G's, we're holding it there for the crew. Major event coming up will be main engine cutoff, followed by stage separation, looking at the second stage engine nozzle, and then ignition of the second stage.
And Miko. Stage separation confirmed. Ignition.
And you can see on your screen there on the right-hand side that the second stage has ignited. That's the MVAC engine. I'm sure the crew felt another kick in the G's there as it ignited. Officially, the Inspiration 4 crew are now on their way to space. First stage booster there on the left-hand side of your screen is making its way back down to Earth. The grid fins have popped out to assist with the steering. It will be making a landing attempt on our drone ship. Just read the instructions, which is parked out in holding position in the Atlantic Ocean.
Yeah, so we have a couple of views on
Acquisition
screen.
of signal, Bermuda.
As Kate mentioned, the left-hand side is a view from the top of our first stage looking down. That has already separated from the second stage, and it's making its way back to Earth. The velocity of the first stage
SpaceX trajectory nominal
is being tracked on the bottom left-hand side of your screen. On the right-hand side of your screen is a view of our second stage Merlin vacuum engine. On the opposite end of that engine is the second stage and the crew, which sits on top of the second stage. Everything looks to be going normally with them. And you can also track the velocity on the second stage on the bottom right-hand side of your screen. And we also have awesome views of the crew inside of their capsule as well.
I'm pretty sure during first stage ascent, I saw Dr. Sian Proctor. I'm pretty sure I saw Dr. Sian Proctor give us 2 thumbs up. Yep. I'm sure she enjoyed this ride that she's been waiting for her entire life.
Yes. One notable thing too is we're getting some twilight views. The sun just set in Florida, but we're high enough up where the light around the horizon is also reflecting off of very high altitude objects, such as the first and second stages.
Dragon SpaceX trajectory nominal.
Love to hear that call out, trajectory nominal from the guidance engineer. Also notice we're really up there now, well past 100 kilometers.
Acquisition of signal, New Hampshire.
Just before that view switched, we saw some teammate fist bumps going on there inside of the cabin.
Yeah, they look like they're having a fun ride there. And their journey isn't over. We've got about 7 more minutes until Dragon separates from the second stage.
Yes, next milestone for this mission is actually going to be happening on the first stage. It's going to be performing a re-entry burn that's going to be coming up around the T+7 minute and 30-second mark. That burn is used to slow down the first stage before it re-enters the denser parts of the atmosphere. A few minutes later, it will execute a landing burn and make an attempt to land on our drone ship that's currently parked in the Atlantic Ocean.
Dragon SpaceX trajectory nominal.
Dragon copies.
So far, I'm just going to say, so far, everything looking great for the Inspiration 4 crew. Hearing that everything is proceeding nominally there with the second stage, which is what you see on the right-hand side.
NTD propulsion nominal.
I was just going to say that MVAC engine we just heard now is looking nominal.
About a minute left to go before the first stage performs its first burn.
And on your left-hand side, looking at the first stage, you may see those white puffs. Those are the nitrogen puffs helping to steer and guide the vehicle. Basically,
Dragon SpaceX trajectory nominal.
Basically, is the attitude control for the vehicle as it makes its way back down to Earth.
There's the crew on the right-hand side of your screen. I think I see some more thumbs up there. Dr. Proctor is clearly excited that she's finally in space. Again, this mission will be orbiting Earth for 3 days, and they will be at an altitude of 575 kilometers, which, if I remember correctly, John you said that that is the distance from Los Angeles to the Golden Gate Bridge.
There you go. They're going to get there a lot faster.
Stage 2, FTS is saved.
Right now.
So what you're seeing on screen on the left-hand side is the entry burns, the first of 2 burns on the first stage. Again, this first stage has already separated from the second stage. So the first stage is making its way back to Earth, trying to land, and the second stage, everything is going well. It is headed into orbit with the crew on board.
Actually, there on your screen, you can see a sunrise horizon there with planet Earth just behind the glowing MVAC engine.
Stage 2 is in terminal guidance.
Call out stage 2 in terminal guidance. We're at the altitude. We're working the angular momentum we need to get into the right orbit. And if you're wondering, crew's pulling about 3.5 Gs right now, less than they took on the first stage flight.
So in about 15 seconds, we are expecting
Copy Shannon.
We are expecting
throttle down.
The MVAC to throttle down and cut off an event called second engine cutoff, and then we'll wait for the confirmation of good orbit. At the same time, the first stage will be beginning its landing burn. And here we have the MVAC. We just saw that it shut off its engine.
Stage 1, landing burn start.
Dragon SpaceX, nominal orbit insertion.
All right, good news there. The nominal orbit insertion. That's amazing news for Inspiration 4 crew.
We were just carried right to the doorstep of an exciting and unexplored frontier. A few have come before and many are about to follow. The door's opening now, and it's pretty incredible.
Stage 1, landing is confirmed.
Dragon SpaceX, launch escape system is disarmed.
And you can hear the excitement. We just heard from Jared thanking everyone for making this mission possible. The Dragon capsule and crew are in a nominal orbit. In a few minutes here, we'll begin opening that. Oh, excuse me. In a few minutes here, we'll separate from the second stage, and then shortly after that, we'll begin opening that nose cone. At the same time, we landed our first stage on the drone ship, which is super exciting.
As if the second stage action wasn't exciting enough.
Right.
So there's that MVAC engine, like we mentioned before. It has already shut down in an event known as second engine cutoff. And the crew are now gliding, if you will.
Now, one thing right now is we're coming up just under 11 minutes in the flight. We're waiting another minute and a half or so before we get into the separation sequence. The second stage is going through a series of events where we make sure that gases are all pushed out of the system. There aren't any what they call disturbance torques. We want to make sure that the second stage is very stable, it's quiet, it's not moving around, it's not doing anything. So we give it a few minutes to actually just vent everything down, then go into quiet mode, Then Dragon will send the command to separate itself from the Falcon 9. It'll be pushed away. Falcon 9 stays in orbit for a while till it eventually comes back to Earth, and then Dragon moves on its way.
Yeah, John, you talked about the terminal count earlier today, and this is almost similar to that. It's like another check before the next event that happens.
The beauty of the countdown.
Okay, we're about 30 seconds away from separation of Dragon from the second stage. The view on the left-hand side of the screen is a view of the unpressurized section of Dragon. So it's the sort of back end, the trunk section of the Dragon. So when we do see separation, we'll see that kind of push away from the second stage and make its way into orbit.
Once again, the Inspiration 4 has lifted off from pad 39A. They are now in orbit around Earth, and there you can see on your screen.
Separation confirmed.
So that is the Dragon trunk.
Dragon, on behalf of the Falcon 9 team, we gave you a great ride to orbit. Enjoy your time on orbit, and we look forward to you flying again with SpaceX.
And copy that, Gerst. We really appreciate everyone's help back in LCC.
That was the voice of SpaceX Chief Engineer Bill Gerstenmaier communicating with Inspiration 4 Commander Jared Isaacman. So Dragon has separated away from the second stage, and that's the view that we have on the left-hand side of your screen. A lot of space there.
Expected
the
loss
next
of signal Bermuda and New Hampshire.
And then the next event that we are anticipating is the opening.
Dragon SpaceX, nominal dehumidifier activation and service section Draco checkouts.
We're going to open up that nose cone.
So we heard the call out, nominal Draco checkouts after separation.
And there's that first view that we have over the shoulders of Commander Jared Isaacman and pilot Sian Proctor. Dr. Sian Proctor is on the right-hand side, and Jared is on the left-hand side. And this is their dashboard for the next 3 days. These touch screens provide them all of the telemetry and data and information about the systems on board Dragon that they can interact with while on orbit.
We can see the zero-G indicator floating around.
And it looks like it is a little golden retriever.
Oh, like the golden retriever assistance dogs at St. Jude Children's Hospital. That is apropos.
Oh, I love it. 5th crew member on board with the Inspiration 4 crew.
So in a few seconds here, we are expecting the nose cone to open up, and hopefully we'll be able to see the first views of the Dragon cupola in space.
There we can see that they have just opened up their visors.
And there is a forward hatch inside of Dragon between the cupola and the crew. So when the nose cone does deploy, they won't immediately get to see out the cupola, but once they can get out of their seats, open up that hatch, they'll get some incredible views of space. And on your right-hand screen is Mission Control Hawthorne at SpaceX headquarters here.
Once again, the cupola is the observation dome that was installed. It's brand new hardware to this mission. It is in place of what was the docking adapter the docking mechanism that allowed Crew Dragon to previously dock with the International Space Station. Due to the fact that the space station is not our destination today, we were able to pull out that docking mechanism and insert the cupola, which will basically provide a 360 view of space for our passengers inside Crew Dragon Resilience here, which I cannot wait for our first views of the cupola. You know, everything that we've seen on the ground here, it's just incredible. And, you know, to see it actually in action with those 360 views is going to be breathtaking for us. I can't even imagine what it might be like to actually experience it in person.
Yeah, this is going to be incredible, and I can't wait for them to get the first look out, and hopefully we'll
lost the signal in Newfoundland.
Hopefully we'll get to see some of their reactions when they first look out that window.
Yeah, so if you are just joining us, this is the Inspiration 4 mission, the first all civilian crew into space. The team had a nominal ascent out of Pad 39A in Kennedy Space Center and are currently in orbit around the Earth.
Yeah, what an incredible place to be in right now when we can say we have now put 4 civilians into space, into orbit. It's been an incredible journey for us to get here. You know, we didn't do this alone. There's a lot of history working with our partners, NASA, to get us to this point. A lot of efforts with reusability and reflying vehicles, which we've seen on this mission particularly. We've reflown the booster 3 times. Dragon, we flew for a second time here. First flew on Crew 1 last year. And now Jared, Sian, Chris, and Haley are out in space.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. Just the fact that these are normal, regular people, non-professional astronauts, and they're now in space. And
Acquisition signal, Okanger.
And it's just wonderful to know that the access to space has opened up. I believe in the note that Jared relayed back to ground. He said that the door is wide open and the view is spectacular. Of course, they can't quite see out through the dome just yet, as we mentioned before. But metaphorically, it must be an incredible feeling to be on board Crew Dragon at this moment.
I bet everyone's super jealous of Haley and her window seat right now.
Right.
She could just turn to her left and see everything.
Chris
Also has one, yeah.
Speaking of window seats, we are approaching the coast of Ireland. We're 249 kilometers up, so we're heading from the 200 kilometers where we injected to 575. Then we'll begin circularizing the orbit. But more importantly, we got into contact with the ground station in England, and they confirmed the nose cone is open.
Amazing.
So another major event, the hooks that hold it down have opened up, and then the nose cone deploys itself up on its actuator. So that exposes the cupola, and we're going to see if we might get any kind of view here before we sign off.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, we aren't going to the International Space Station. We're actually just going out into space, into orbit. So they will be doing a couple burns. Another one will be, or the first one will be 45 minutes into flight, and then another 90 minutes into flight, and that'll take them to their final orbit of 575 kilometers away from Earth.
So at this point, it sounds like we're actually not going to be able to get views of the nose cone opening and of that cupola. So unfortunately, we won't be able to bring that to you live at the moment. However, we will be providing that footage once it becomes available. And the 4 of us are super excited to see what our 4 Inspiration 4 astronauts are going to be seeing over the next 3 days. So at this point, Jared, Haley, Chris, and Sian are now officially in orbit. Over the next 45 minutes, they'll reach their cruising orbit and spend the next 3 days orbiting planet Earth. We'll be checking in periodically with the crew to see how they're enjoying their first trip to orbit and to check in on those 360 views of space.
If you are curious and want to know where Dragon is at orbiting the Earth, keep tabs on the mission with the Follow Dragon tracker on SpaceX.com.
Yeah, and stay on top of any potential live events that we might be able to have with the crew while they're out in orbit by following us on social.
And finally for today, the thank yous. Kennedy Space Center, the Eastern Range for the support getting us through the countdown, the FAA for launch approval, and of course the Inspiration 4 crew for their confidence in SpaceX, getting them into space today. And finally, thank you to everyone who is logged in to watch our webcast and donated to the St. Jude Children's Hospital. With that, we wish you a good day.